Episode 5, Confronting the Big Boss in Anger. Living together? You should know that Little Treasure preferred peace and quiet. Normally, after finishing his meals, he would retreat to his room, and the household staff had to return to their own rooms after their duties were done. They couldn't make any noise, otherwise, even a slight disturbance would make Little Treasure very irritable, and he could even lose control of his emotions. Before this, even though the Liu family members felt heartache for Little Treasure's isolation, they didn't dare to move him to their living quarters because of the fear that his needs would be overlooked. But now, Little Treasure had voluntarily left his room? Not only that, he went straight to Lu Tingxiao, hugging his leg. Lu Jingli couldn't help but laugh. What's Little Treasure doing? Hugging your leg? Lu Tingxiao lowered his head to look at his son and immediately understood what he wanted. Without hesitation, he refused. No, you already went last night. So, Little Treasure's gaze turned to his phone. You already called during dinner. Lu Tingxiao refused once more. Lu Jingli, on the side, realized what was happening. The little guy was missing Ningxi. Seeing that he couldn't persuade his dad, Little Treasure dashed to Lu Jingli instead and tried the same trick, hugging his leg. Lu Jingli was pleasantly surprised. No, Little Treasure, don't use this trick on me. You know I'm the one who's the most defenseless against your cuteness. Although Little Treasure usually appeared vacant, when he had a request, his expression and mannerisms could easily melt anyone's heart. When he looked up at you with his beautiful, star-like eyes, you couldn't help but feel like you wanted to pluck the stars from the sky for him. The only one at home who could withstand this move was Lu Tingxiao. Lu Jingli shrugged and said, Little Treasure, using your cuteness on me won't work. I can't beat your dad. As soon as he said that, Little Treasure immediately let go of Lu Jingli, making a very determined decision. Seeing the little guy's pitiful expression, Lu Jingli held the wall and couldn't help but laugh. Hey, Little Treasure, you don't have to rush like this. There's an old saying, if love between both sides can last for a long time, why rush to be together every day? After your dad marries Aunt Xiaoxi, you'll see her every day. Persuasion was ineffective. Little Treasure pouted, kicked open the door, and ran out. Lu Jingli was helpless and raised his hands. What should we do? He ate a lot tonight, Lu Tingxiao said. In other words, he wouldn't resort to his ultimate technique of fasting for a while. Hearing his brother say this, Lu Jingli felt relieved. However, they had underestimated Little Treasure. He was a child, he didn't need a plan. He only needed one word, chaos. Just as the words left their mouths, a loud bang echoed from the downstairs living room. Lu Jingli and Lu Tingxiao exchanged a glance and rushed downstairs immediately. In just a short time, the living room downstairs had turned into a mess. A 1-meter-tall antique vase lay in pieces on the floor, and everything that could be knocked over or destroyed had suffered the same fate. Lu Qingyu. Lu Tingxiao usually only used Little Treasure's full name when he was truly angry. The intimidating pressure released by those words was too much for even Lu Jingli to bear, let alone Little Treasure. Little Treasure was frightened by his father's fearsome expression but became even more agitated. He let out ear-piercing screams and ran around causing more havoc. Lu Jingli followed behind, trying to catch him, but he had to be careful. With so many broken pieces on the ground, the consequences of a fall could be disastrous. Bro, we can't continue like this. Shouldn't we call Ningxi over? Lu Jingli suggested. No. Don't call her, Lu Tingxiao replied firmly. Lu Jingli tried to persuade him, Bro, Little Treasure is just a child, not your subordinate. You're being too strict with him. What harm can it do if you indulge him a bit? Which child isn't willful and mischievous? It's not your place to interfere with my parenting style, Lu Tingxiao responded, his expression as cold as ice. It seemed like he had made up his mind not to encourage Little Treasure's bad habit of achieving his goals through chaos. Lu Jingli was caught in the middle of this father-son conflict, and he had a headache. If things escalated and caught the attention of the older generation, it might expose the fact that he had taken Little Treasure to a bar. God, someone please save him. While Lu Tingxiao went to deal with Little Treasure, Lu Jingli secretly took out his phone and dialed Ningxi's number. That evening, Ningxi was at home, reading a script while chatting with someone. Dirty Demon King, Ning Xiaoxi, can you please change your non-mainstream QQ name? It's painful to look at. Lonely Whisper of the Wind, Dirty Demon King, isn't your name even worse? Do you dare to say mine's bad? Dirty Demon King, ahem, I'm coming back to China next month. Come pick me up at the airport. Lonely whisper of the wind, I'm not coming. I'm Busse. Dirty demon king, come pick me up. Lonely whisper of the wind, I said I'm busy. Dirty demon king, are you coming or not? Lonely whisper of the wind, the other party doesn't want to talk to you and just threw a dog at you. Dirty demon king, the other party caught your dog and had some fun. Lonely whisper of the wind, the dog feels like it's been pricked by a needle. Dirty demon king, damn. Why am I still dirty? And who the hell is the needle? Lonely whisper of the wind, you started it first. I'm not discussing this with you. I need to read the script. Dirty demon king, it's just a second female lead. What's so great about it? We've had our fun. Are you really going to be this heartless? Lonely whisper of the wind, there's a sea of people who've had fun with me. Who are you? Dirty demon king, Ning Xiaoxi. You'd better wait for me. Ningxi closed her computer and focused on the script. After a while, her phone rang, showing an unknown number. She worried it might be a call from the drama crew, so she immediately picked it up. Hello, Ningxi, help. Who are you? It's me, Lu Jingli. You need to come to the Platinum Palace right now. Something happened to Little Treasure. What? What happened to Little Treasure? Ningxi's heart tightened immediately. It's a crisis. Please come quickly. My God, be calm, be calm. He's just a child. Little Treasure, you can't do this. Oh. Lu Jingli sounded extremely serious, and from the background noise on the phone, she could hear things falling and breaking. Ningxi became even more nervous and quickly responded, I'm on my way. She didn't know what had come over her, but as soon as she heard that something had happened to Little Treasure, she couldn't sit still. Even though they had only known each other for a few days, she couldn't help but care deeply for him. The Platinum Palace was quite far from her location, at least a 40-minute drive by car. Ningxi was worried that something might happen during that time, so she quickly brought out her motorcycle from the garage and raced to the scene. What was normally a 40-minute trip only took her about 10 minutes. It was likely that Lu Jingli had informed the security guards, and after mentioning her name, they let her in. Once she reached Villa number 8, a young maid was waiting for her outside to lead the way. For the convenience of riding her motorcycle, Ningxi was dressed in a black, tight-fitting leather jacket and pants. She arrived in a hurry, took off her helmet and gloves, and her long hair flowed like a waterfall down her shoulders. She exuded a handsome and confident aura, appearing breathtakingly beautiful. Seeing her dressed like this, Lu Jingli almost whistled. Lu Tingxiao, do you really think I won't dare to challenge you? In the corner of the living room, Lu Tingxiao had a tight grip on his son, who had no way to escape. The little one struggled fiercely in his arms, like an angry little beast, with his small, trembling paws raised. No. When Ningxi saw this, she hurried over and snatched Little Treasure away. Little Treasure looked at the newcomer with his big, round eyes, his expression blank for a moment. Then, his large eyes reddened, and he buried his head in Ningxi's embrace, refusing to let go. Seeing that the cute and soft Little Treasure from yesterday was now filled with fear, trembling all over, Ningxi's heart ached. Her anger flared, and she didn't care that the other person was a terrifying big boss. She scolded him angrily, Mr. Lu, I know I'm an outsider and don't have the right to say much, but I still want to say this, your way of parenting is problematic. At such a young age, children need warmth, especially considering Little Treasure's special circumstances and the fact that he doesn't have his mother with him. You should be more patient and understanding with him. How can you be so harsh on him? Didn't you see how scared he was? You even wanted to use force against him. Lu Tingxiao replied, it's my fault. Lu Jingli thought, heh. Lu Jingli had suggested earlier that Lu Tingxiao's parenting style had issues, and he got a face full of anger. But when Ningxi pointed it out, Lu Tingxiao immediately admitted his mistake. Lu Jingli couldn't help but find it amusing. Ningxi's presence calmed Little Treasure, and he followed her obediently to his room. It seemed that Little Treasure, who had been like a calm and obedient little dog in front of his owner, had transformed into a fierce little lion when his owner wasn't around. But now, he was back to being a well-behaved little boy. Sitting on the sofa, Ningxi gently stroked Little Treasure's head and asked, what happened? He was fine earlier today, wasn't he? Lu Jingli sighed and explained, it's just that Little Treasure missed you and wanted to see you. He wanted to call you, but my brother wouldn't allow it, fearing it might disturb you. So Little Treasure started acting up, running around and causing a mess in the living room. My brother didn't want to indulge this bad behavior, so they quarreled, which led to the situation you saw when you arrived. Is it just because he couldn't see me or call me? Ningxi found it hard to understand. While Lu Tingxiao had mentioned earlier that little treasure seemed quite attached to her, could her influence be this strong? What do you think? You're underestimating your own influence. Lu Jingli explained and gave her examples. Remember that day in the warehouse? When you fainted, little treasure wouldn't allow anyone to touch you. My brother had to carry you to the hospital himself. Ningxi glanced at Lu Tingxiao unconsciously. Wait, Lu Tingxiao carried her to the hospital himself? And when he woke up in the hospital and didn't see you, he thought you had died. He went berserk, nearly attempted to jump off a building. It was only when my brother showed him the note you left for him that he calmed down. Yesterday evening, little treasure refused to eat and used a hunger strike to threaten my brother to make him call you. As for tonight, he ate too much after your phone call, so the hunger strike tactic wouldn't work. That's why we had this situation. Oh, he ate too much? Tonight, during their phone call, she did encourage little treasure to eat more. Could that be her fault? Ningxi took a while to process the information conveyed in Lu Jingli's words. She looked at the little one clinging tightly to her side and asked, Little treasure, did you cause all that mess because you wanted to see me? Little treasure nodded. Ningxi furrowed her brows and continued, Do you know that what you did was wrong? Little treasure shook his head. Ningxi finally understood why Lu Tingxiao was so strict with him. This child must have been excessively indulged at home, believing that everything should go his way. Her expression turned serious as she told him, Auntie will tell you, what you did is wrong. It's something only naughty children do. Promise me you won't do it again, okay? Little treasure nodded. Lu Tingxiao's expression was somewhat indescribable. Although little treasure could be mischievous, once he agreed to something, he would definitely follow through. Psychologists had tried various methods to correct his bad habits, including his threats of going on a hunger strike, locking himself up, and creating a mess, but little treasure remained unfazed. As for attempting to discipline him, both of the elders in the family couldn't bear to continue, usually giving in halfway and spoiling him. Ningxi's influence on little treasure seemed to be even greater than he had imagined. Naturally, he was optimistic about this. After explaining things to little treasure, Ningxi gently sang him to sleep. Can I sing a different song for you tonight? Little treasure obediently nodded. She thought for a moment and then sang, The Calabash Brothers, 1 vine, 7 gourds, they're not afraid of wind or rain, la 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 la. Lu Jingli, who was leaning against the door frame, nearly stumbled and fell. How could our little treasure possibly like such a ridiculously childish children's song? To his surprise, the little one was listening with great interest, and to make matters worse, even his own brother was enjoying it. After finally getting little treasure to sleep, Ningxi stretched lazily and said, I've sung all the children's songs I know in my entire life. Lu Jingli was exasperated. Why do you insist on singing children's songs? Sing something else. These songs are driving me crazy. Ningxi tied up her long hair with an elastic band and gave a bright smile. What else? All the songs I know are not suitable for children. As soon as she mentioned other songs, Lu Tingxiao's mind instantly recalled her soft, enchanting, and alluring singing. Lu Jingli, upon hearing her, grew excited. Haha, really? What songs do you know? Sing one for me. Lu Tingxiao shot a glance in his direction. Lu Jingli was frightened and immediately restrained himself, thinking that his brother was too stingy. Did you just arrive nearby? Lu Tingxiao asked. Otherwise, she wouldn't have arrived so quickly. No, I was at the apartment. I rode my motorcycle all the way here. Fast, right? Ningxi replied with a smug look. No wonder she was dressed like this. Today, she looked even more stunning than yesterday. Yesterday, she seemed like a rule-abiding elf, but today, she looked like a carefree fairy. Very dangerous, Lu Tingxiao disapproved, then gave a stern glare at Lu Jingli, who had brought Ningxi here without permission. It's alright, I'm skilled at riding a motorcycle. Ningxi waved it off and then yawned, saying, Since little treasure is fine now, I should be leaving. Just as she was about to leave, Lu Tingxiao suddenly spoke, Miss Ning, I have an unpleasant request. Having drained all her anger, Ningxi immediately reverted to a submissive attitude and said respectfully, Mr. Lu, please go ahead. As long as I can do it, I will. The Lu family had influence in both the legitimate and illegitimate worlds, and Lu Tingxiao was known as the ruthless big boss. Lu Tingxiao looked at his son inside the room with a serious expression. You've seen little treasure's situation, Miss Ning. I hope you can temporarily move in and stay here for some time. After hearing Lu Tingxiao's request, Ningxi was taken aback. Ah. Move in here, to stay? Yes, Lu Tingxiao replied. Ningxi scratched her head in a dilemma. Well, isn't it a bit inappropriate? If little treasure wants to see me, I can come over anytime to visit him. Lu Tingxiao looked exhausted as he massaged his temple. There are too many uncertainties, especially at night. In case of an emergency, it's too dangerous for you to rush over like this. With my status, it's also inconvenient for me to frequently bring little treasure to see you. I know this request is quite demanding, but as little treasure's father, I want to try. I hope you can agree. Ningxi had a headache. If Lu Tingxiao were to pressure her with his authority, she would definitely refuse. However, he was making such a sincere request, and it was difficult to say no when he looked this good. At this moment, Lu Jingli was staring at his elder brother with admiration in his eyes. He never expected his brother to use such a high-end approach, paving the way to Ningxi in a disadvantaged situation. Little treasure's presence had not become a hindrance, instead, it had turned into his biggest advantage. Just as Ningxi was contemplating the situation, a sudden crash occurred as the bedside lamp was knocked over. Little treasure had jumped out of bed in a panic and rushed out. His fear only dissipated when he saw Ningxi, and he immediately threw himself onto her leg. The fearless look in his eyes was heart-wrenching. Ningxi quickly squatted down and asked, "Baby, why did you wake up?" The little one buried his head in her and clung tightly to her neck. "Good boy, Auntie is here. Don't be scared." Ningxi softly patted his back and smelled the sweet scent of milk on him, feeling a complex mix of emotions. She had always been averse to getting close to children, but she couldn't bring herself to dislike little treasure. Ningxi had to coax little treasure back to sleep, and then she walked out of the room. The chaotic living room downstairs had been tidied up by the servants, who were all well-trained and efficient. They were overly polite and respectful, not daring to gossip or eavesdrop. After completing their tasks, they left quietly. Seeing her come out, Lu Tingxiao remained silent and didn't pressure her. Ningxi hesitated, but considering how little treasure clung to her so tightly, she eventually relented. She took a deep breath and said, "All right, Mr. Lu, I'll help with this favor as a way to repay little treasure for saving me earlier." Lu Tingxiao's expression relaxed slightly. "Thank you. Little treasure could wake up at any time, so it seems I can't leave tonight. But my belongings are still at my apartment," Ningxi said, feeling uncertain. "It's not a problem. I'll have someone fetch your things," Lu Tingxiao assured her. Lu Jingli, who had been quietly watching the entire situation without interrupting, stared at this astonishing development. "So, are they living together now? Do you have any other requests?" Lu Tingxiao looked at Lu Jingli, who was still standing there. "I'm out of here." Lu Jingli fled after being scorned by his elder brother. He finally understood that his brother wasn't incapable of chasing women, he simply hadn't removed the seal for the past 32 years. Lu Tingxiao led Ningxi into a room next to Little Treasure's bedroom. "You'll stay in here. You can choose the decor style you like, and we'll redecorate it." Ningxi hastily waved her hand. "No, there's no need for that. I won't be staying long, and it's too troublesome to redecorate." "It's not a bother," Lu Tingxiao replied. He took a bunch of keys from the butler and handed them to Ningxi. "These are the keys to the house. You can come and go anywhere you like. The front door has a keypad lock with the code 591414. This key is for the attic, and you should keep it on you at all times. Little treasure sometimes likes to take the keys and hide in there." "This key is?" Ningxi interrupted him as she realized he had given her the keys to their home safe. "Wait a minute, Mr. Lu, are you really this trusting of me? Aren't you afraid I'll secretly empty your house? What do you want?" "I can have someone help you move it," Lu Tingxiao said seriously, with no hint of joking.